What about Chinese potential for rescinding the currency manipulation designation?
We'll be making a decision on that and evaluating it, although I would comment that assuming we close the agreement and we have the assurances, that'll be a big step in the right direction for our evaluation.
What about Chinese business? Do you still welcome Chinese business?
Absolutely, we do. We're doing a lot of business with Chinese companies. We do have to be, security companies and certain companies we have to be careful with, and we have to pay very close attention. But we're doing tremendous business with China and with Chinese businesses. It's tailed off. We've tailed it off. We've purposely tailed it off, but that'll start building up very quickly again. We expect that to build up to a much bigger extent, I think, than even before.
Mr. President, when you talk about a big trade deal with China, is this what you've envisioned?
Well, this is phase one, and it's a big part of it. The farmers, the intellectual property, a lot of areas are covered here that frankly are in great shape. Intellectual property, financial services is going to be a massive boon to the banks and credit card companies and all of these companies, including ownership interests. Before you had to do certain things that made it very difficult for banks and institutions to really go into China. China's really been opened up now for the first time to financial services and to the big banks and credit card companies and other types of financial services. So that's a tremendous thing. And I think we have complete agreement on that. Intellectual property, a lot of agreement, but we'll have some of that included in phase two. Agriculture should be done. I don't think the farmers can handle any more than what they're getting. Don't forget, we just signed a big deal with Japan. And that was a very big deal, and a lot of that had to do with agriculture also. So the farmers are doing well. Currency, foreign exchange, we're all set on that. That we've been able to do, and not only through simplification, but the importance of it. It's very important. And technology transfer. So we're going to have some technology transfer here, and some will be in phase two. We think we'll probably be able to conclude it with phase two, but it may be phase two, phase three. Okay?
Mr. President, how did you come around to the idea of doing a phase one? You've been saying as recently as earlier this week that you wanted one big deal.
Because it's such a big deal, and it covers so much territory, that doing it in sections and phases is, I think, really better. And we're talking about very big. Don't forget, we've covered fully agriculture, even in terms of agricultural structural issues, and then in terms of $50 billion of agriculture. So that will be covered in its entirety. Currency, foreign exchange will be covered in entirety. Financial services, I think, will be covered pretty much in its entirety. So the banks and lending institutions, all institutions are covered. Some of technology transfer, a large part of intellectual property will be covered. So I think it actually works out to be a very neat package. And now we can focus on phase two.
Mr. President, the last time the Vice Premier was in the Oval Office.
Since you said it might take 4 or 5 or 6 weeks.
Whatever it is.
At what point would you raise tariffs again if you don't have a deal?
Well, we'll see. Only good faith and bad faith, and I think we have a lot of good faith right now going on. I think we have.
So no new tariffs in the foreseeable future?
What we're doing is we're going to start, John, right away and getting this papered. Right now, it's already partially papered. Much of this has been pretty much completed from the standpoint of paper. But we think it'll take 4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. Now, we happen to be together in Chile, so that could be a point or maybe not. President Xi will be there, and I'll be there for the big summit.
President, the last time the Vice Premier was in the Oval Office in April, you said a deal at that point was about 4 weeks away. I would love to hear from both of you why this time is different. What's changed in
Well, I think we got to know each other a lot better. Don't forget, there's been a lot of back and forth since that happened. We thought we had a deal, and perhaps they didn't. But it didn't work out that way. This deal is a bigger deal than the last deal, relatively speaking. Now, we're talking about big parts of it with financial services and agriculture. But when we talk about $50 billion in agriculture, we never had that in mind in the first deal. We were thinking about 20. We were thinking about anywhere from 16, I would say, to $20 billion. Now we're talking about $50 billion. So this is actually a much bigger deal. It's a big chunk of it, but it's a much bigger deal than we had in mind. Certainly in terms of, I would say, Steve, financial services is bigger and more complete. Intellectual property will be in both phases of the deal. Currency, foreign exchange, we didn't really discuss that very much in the last deal. Now we're including it in this deal because a lot of things have happened during the course of the last year that meant it. So I think this is actually, when you add it up, going to be a more important deal, a bigger deal, and more precise.
Mr. Vice
The
President.
currency had been agreed last spring as well before talks.
Well, now we have currency. The currency foreign exchange is included. The foreign exchange aspect of it is much more complete now than it would have been under the other system. And don't forget, a lot of things have happened with currency and foreign exchange that we weren't talking about a year ago. Things have happened. Yes, from China.
When and where would you like it to be?
Well, we're going to find that out. That'll be up to the Vice Premier and to President Xi. So we'll find that out.
Amid the global economic slowdown, do you think this kind of win-win will help?
Well, the United States has been doing very well. China, I think this will be a tremendously positive. This is going to be a tremendous thing for China. We've been doing well, and I think we'll do better. I mean, we've been doing really well. We've been leading the world in many aspects of what we're talking about. I think we'll do even better, and I think China will do tremendously well with this deal. This is a great deal for China. It's a great deal for us.
So they're getting 40 to 50 billion. Is that an annual figure? Will it rise at that figure?
Do you want to define that, please?
So it will scale up to an annual figure, yes.
An annual figure of 40 to 50 billion.
Yes.
And you say over how long?
Within the second year.
Over the less than 2 years.
Mr. President, Hong Kong and the Uyghurs come up to us a big issue in other parts of Capitol Hill, for example. Or is that separate?
We discussed Hong Kong, and I think great progress has been made by China in Hong Kong. And I've been watching, and I actually told the Vice Premier, it really has toned down a lot from the initial days of a number of months ago when I saw a lot of people, and I see far fewer now. And we were discussing it, and I think that's going to take care of itself. I actually think this deal is a great deal for the people of Hong Kong to see what happened. I think this is a very positive thing for Hong Kong. But it really has, it's the escalation, it really has de-escalated a lot from the beginning, and we were discussing this.
Yeah, well, you put a stop on the blacklist of Chinese companies, which seems to be funding this case.
Well, we'll be looking at the blacklist, and we'll be making a determination as to which companies would be on that list.
Mr. President, if this deal goes forward, helps the economy, economic growth, et cetera, do you still think that the Federal Reserve needs to cut rates in this?
Yeah, I do. I think the Federal Reserve should cut rates regardless of this deal because we're higher than other nations. Germany is loaning money, and when it has to be paid back, they get paid, okay? It's ridiculous. And I think that the Federal Reserve should cut rates regardless of how good this is. We have a great economy, but we have a Federal Reserve that's not in step with the rest of the world. So I think they ought to get in step. And if they were in step, we would, regardless of the China deal is much more important than the interest rates. But because this has to do with more than trade, this has to do with world peace, this has to do with getting along, this has to do with the rest of the world. This isn't just a deal on trade. This has to do with a lot of friction, a lot of bad things that are happening in the world. So this is far more important than the Federal Reserve and interest rates. But the Federal Reserve should cut interest rates, absolutely.